Hey, welcome back to How to Barbecue Right. I'm Malcolm Reed. Y'all check it out. I found this beautiful tri-tip at my local grocery store. We don't see these very often, so when they have them, I always buy several. Today, I'm gonna do this one steakhouse style. I'm gonna take all the flavors of a perfectly grilled ribeye steak. We're gonna do it to this tri-tip. Hopefully, I'm gonna nail the doneness, perfectly medium rare. It's gonna be beefy, it's gonna be juicy, it's gonna be delicious. Let's get to cooking. Now, you bring this tri-tip home, you don't have to do a whole lot to it. Sometimes there's a little extra sinew that you might want to knock off. But what you got is some really lean, really delicious sirloin. This is the tip end of that sirloin steak. Now, you really want to notice the grain on your tri-tip. Now, typically, you're going to find it running right along that narrow end, pretty straight. But as you get down to the wide end of the tri-tip, it starts to fan. Just remember that when it's time to slice it at the end. First thing I'm going to do is get me a little beef rub on it. You could use whatever you like. This really goes good on steak, so I know it's going to be good on this tri-tip. This is Swine prime beef. If you got a favorite beef rub, go ahead and use it. Puts a nice little umami flavor on it, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. We're going to put a nice little coat on there. And once I get that seasoning kind of patted in so it'll stick a little bit, I'm going to drop it down in a marinade. Now today, I'm keeping it really simple. We're just going in a Ziploc bag. Already got a good layer of seasoning on it. Kind of make sure it's spread out a little bit. And for the marinade, I got some W sauce. Man, you can't go wrong with it. We're just going straight out the bottle. Nothing fancy. I just like those Worcestershire notes it has. Makes a great marinade for beef. Get all the air out of the bag that you can. Just squeeze it out. At this point, just stick it in the refrigerator. Maybe put it on a little tray or set it in a bowl where in case it leaks, it don't make a mess in the fridge. But you just want it to get happy in this bag for about 2 hours. After 2 hours, go ahead and pull that tri-tip out of the refrigerator. We're gonna take it out of the marinade. I'm just gonna try to get the excess off. Lay it right back in that tray. We didn't have any spillage. And you can see how that marinade kind of changes the look and hopefully the flavor of the tri-tip. It soaks down in it. Now, a tri-tip's not super thick, so you're gonna get a lot of that flavor from the marinade. Big, thick piece of meat, you have to leave it in there a long time, but 2 hours is plenty for a tri-tip. I do like to just blot off the excess moisture. I want it dry so it makes a nice crust when we put it on the grill. So I'm just using paper towel. And to get that crust on it, you want to use a seasoning that's got a coarse grind to it. I'm using my steak rub, but you could use any kind of seasoning. Thicker pieces of pepper, flaky salt, nice herbs in it. That's what you want on this part. You can see as it comes out, it kind of gives that meat a texture, and it really makes a nice crust on the outside. And I'm just taking my hand, I'm not really rubbing it, I'm just kind of pressing those seasonings into the surface of the tri-tip. Now for the edges, there's always some excess in the pan or on the board. Just kind of blot them, just kind of pick those up so we're not wasting that seasoning. Now I'm just gonna let it hang out for a few minutes. It's the perfect time fire up your grill. Now for this one, I'm gonna be using my Weber kettle. I'm gonna start a chimney of royal oak briquettes, and when those get good and ashed over, we're gonna dump them on one side of the grill. It's gonna create kind of that two-zone cooking. So any grill you can set up for two-zone, you can do this. You want all the hot coals over on one side, you want to avoid on the opposite side, and put your grill grate in place, let the grill come up to temp. Now our grill is almost up to temperature. I really want to watch the internal on this tri-tip, so I'm gonna go ahead and use a meat thermometer in it. I've got my ThermoWorks dot. I'm just gonna kind of figure out where the thickest part of it is. It's right in here, and I want to be about right in there. About midways of the thickest part of this tri-tip is where I want to know what the temperature is. So I'm just gonna slide this probe about halfway in there, and it should be about in this area. That's gonna let me watch it so we don't overcook it. Now I'm gonna set it for about 118 degrees. We're stopping it shy of done because I know it's gonna carry over, but I also wanna sear it. I wanna make a nice little seared crust on the outside, and that's what I'm gonna use the hot coals for at the very end. But first we got to get this on the pit, get it up to temp. So the grill is up to temperature. You see we got a good bed of hot coals over on one side here. We're going to keep it away from the direct heat. It's over on the cool side, but the way you set it on here is the way it's going to cook. So if you want to kind of give it a little shape, now's the time to do it. But that looks good to me. Get our lid back on with the vents over the meat. So it's pulling that heat in the dome of the Weber over to this side. And now we just watch it. When it gets to 118, we're going to take it off and let it rest. All right, we have hit internal temperature, and check that dude out. Now it ain't done, but it's looking good. We're running at 118, 120 mark. Now I'm just gonna let the tri-tip set in this little tray. I've got some foil in it so it'll catch any of the juices, but I really do this rest part so it'll calm down. It's gonna give me an even cook when I put it back over those hot coals, and we've pushed a lot of that moisture to the outside. I want it to kind of go back in just a little bit. So letting it rest, This 10-15 minutes is gonna be perfect right before we sear it. Now I want these coals to get good and hot now, so they put a nice sear on that tri-tip. So I'm gonna leave the lid off. And while the lid's off and it's coming up, I'm gonna make a little Steakhouse butter sauce. So I've got an iron skillet. I'm just gonna add a stick of butter to it. And then I've got some cloves of garlic, some shallot that I finely chopped. And then I've got some aromatics, some herbs. There's some thyme and some rosemary, just a few sprigs. We'll just throw those in there too. Now it's already smelling good, y'all. You got that rosemary and that thyme, mixing with that garlic and shallot in the butter. I want to get a little seasoning on it. So I'm just going to take some of that steak rub and put it right over the top. Get some flavor to it. And you're kind of getting a 2-for-1 here. Get my coals good and hot, but I'm getting my little steak butter sauce together too. So I want it hot enough to wake up that garlic, wake up those herbs, really infuse that flavor into the butter. That's what's going to give us those steakhouse flavors. All right, so it's been about 10 minutes. I've just slid that melted butter over to the side with all our flavors in it. I'm going to go ahead and get some of it going on top of the tri-tip. My coals are really good and hot. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a coat, because this is gonna be the side I'm gonna go down with first. If I get some of those pieces of the shallot and garlic, that's okay. We're just gonna go right over this hot spot. Let it start searing. It's not gonna take long. We just want like a minute or so on each side. What I'm gonna do is just take the butter and just baste it over this backside. Some of it's gonna run off, cause it to flame up. We want that action. It's making that crust. We're not really raising the internal temperature at this part. We're not trying to. We're just trying to sear the outside, really lock in those flavors and get us a crust going. So we'll let that sit for just another minute. Let's see what we look like here. Oh yeah, check that out. That's a nice crust. We'll come back, we'll just put a little more butter on this backside, seared off on the top, seared off on the bottom. I still got me some butter to dip. After another about a minute and a half on that bottom side, we got a nice crust going on it. Now I'm just gonna stick it right back on the pan, and we're gonna let it rest one more time. It just only needs about 5 to 7 minutes. Just time for it to cool off just a little bit. Man, look at that crust, that is beautiful. That's a good looking Steakhouse Tri Tip. Now, after that short rest, it's only like 5 minutes, all I can take. It's time to cut it up. Now if you remember, we saw the grains on the narrow end, it kind of runs right along it, and then it fans out down here on the wide end. To make it really easy, you can find that seam where it starts to widen out and go ahead and just go straight down, and at that point, divides that tri-tip into 2 pieces. So we'll put this to the side, and we're ready to slice. I mean, look at that, that's beautiful. That's beautiful, y'all. What I like to do is start on this narrow end, and now we can just go straight across. And you can skew your blade if you want to a little bit, just to get you some taller slices, but I like to keep it, you know, fairly thin. The good thing about tri-tip is it kind of swells up a little bit, so, you know, it looks like it's super thin when you put it on the grill, but as it cooked, it swelled up, and it's almost like eating beef tenderloin at this point, just from the looks of it. Now, the taste is gonna be different. Tri-tip is rich, it is beefy, it is lean, excellent protein, and when you cook it perfectly medium rare, the juice is just all in the meat. That's beautiful, y'all. That's perfectly cooked tri-tip. It's gonna be tender. Cut right across the grain. I gotta try it. Oh, that might be better than ribeye. That's delicious. Steakhouse Tri Tip, cooked medium rare, pretty much a reverse sear. We started it out slow, seared it at the end after a short rest, watched the internal temperature, and just nailed it. As I get on in it, I kind of straighten my knife out and just go down. We'll dip it in a little bit of that butter that I left on the side. That's money. It's great like this, but it's also great on a sandwich, taco, however you want to eat it. Ooh, let me get the little burnt edge of the tri-tip in the butter. I know this is gonna be a crunchy bite. So good. Hey, I appreciate y'all hanging out with us here today at HowToBBQRight. If you like what we're doing, subscribe to that channel. You can find us on all the social media channels. Shell and I'll be talking about this tri-tip and all the other delicious stuff we've been cooking on our weekly podcast. So y'all tune in and give that a listen too. We gone. I don't need no sides. I don't need no vegetables. Just give me a board of perfectly cooked meat.